All right, in the interest of time, I think we can get underway here. People can keep joining in as they come. So today is the 9th of December. Welcome everyone to the Chromec webinar series. Today we'll be talking about the Dmatrix gamma imaging system. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Madhuri Kaul. I am the Product and Applications Manager for Medical Devices for Chromec. I'm based out of their US offices in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My background is as a physicist. I have my PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, where I worked in the positron emission tomography physics and instrumentation group. And then I joined Toshiba Medical Research, now known as Canon Medical Research, as a PET and CT detector scientist. So today we're going to spend some time talking about the Dmatrix, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company first, and then we'll talk about what is the Dmatrix product and go into some of its features and specifications. And then I'll spend some time talking about some of the applications in which this unit can be deployed and developed, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So Chromec has been established since 2003 in the UK. We sell to over 40 countries worldwide, and we provide radiation detection solutions globally in 3 major markets: nuclear detection, security screening, and what we're here to talk about today, medical imaging. And Chromec is one of the world's largest manufacturers of CZT. CZT is cadmium zinc telluride, or CZT for people of our British persuasion. And it's a room temperature semiconductor device that directly converts X-ray or gamma photons into electron and hole pairs that are accelerated towards an anode and cathode and read out via digital signal. And Chromec has 2 major CZT manufacturing sites, one in the UK, one in the US, with hundreds of growth furnaces that are computer controlled and fully automated, and we process thousands of kilograms of CZT every year. And one of the big advantages of Chromec as a CZT manufacturer is that we don't just grow the ingots. We have a full linear processing chain that goes all the way from the crystal growth, then we do our in-house ingot slicing and dicing, the surface treatments, all the electrical contacting and bonding, all the way to the detector module assembly. So we're really a full powerhouse from beginning to end. And that is really what makes up the Chromec advantage, is this vertical integration of material growth and electronics and system design and performance optimization. And we also have scientists and engineers who work in-house to work with our customers and collaborators in designing and developing customized solutions for a lot of our partners. We have academic partnerships where we implement emerging technologies into really improving radiation detection solutions for applications that are novel and forthcoming. And a lot of these platforms have a commonality that can be allow them to be deployed in all the different market segments. So the Dmatrix, even though here we're talking about medical imaging today, could just as well be used by somebody in nuclear detection and the security screening market, depending on your needs. So what is the Dmatrix? You can see the image here on the right. Hopefully you can all see my mouse. The top right is the full stack. The bottom right shows a cutaway image showing the different layers of the boards. So it's a 2x2 array of CZT crystals. So 1 square is a crystal. Each crystal is pixelated into 22x22 array of pixels at a 2 millimeter pitch. So the complete field of view of one module is 44 millimeters by 44 millimeters. And you can see that each layer is tucked in neatly underneath the CZT crystal, so none of the boards stick out past the edges of the crystal itself. So this allows the Dmatrix module to be 4-side buttable, so you can really tile these in any geometry and form factor that you'd like to have. Now the CZT crystal itself comes in different thickness options, from 5 millimeters all the way up to 15 millimeters, depending on your sensitivity needs. And the measurable energy range that it allows you to have is as low as 30 keV all the way up to 3 MeV. And we sell this Dmatrix module in a package solution called what we call the demonstrator unit. This is a plug-and-play solution, and it comes with readout software. So here's a table of some system specifications, and you can see that it makes it really easy to use. You have a on-off switch for high voltage and power, makes it safe and contained. You have an analog BNC output, and you have a gigabit Ethernet input-output interface. So this is just a really nice platform for somebody who is not sure of the performance of the Dmatrix unit in their application and would like some quick and easy way to quickly deploy the Dmatrix in their lab setting or their industry research setting and try to get an idea of the different performance factors, and they can get the demonstrator unit and be up and running in no time. And the ASIC within the Dmatrix unit, I tabulated some of the features here. It's got 128 anode channels, and it also has a cathode readout. You not only get a positioning, but also timing information. The system triggers via qualifying anode channel signals. And the very nice feature of this ASIC is it also allows you to have negative energy readout on all the anode channels. So the negative energy, the ability to do timing, and having a cathode output allows you to do some very nice algorithm development that a lot of researchers may be interested in, which is doing a charge sharing analysis between pixels, where you can read out the neighboring anode pixels to develop your charge sharing algorithm. And the cathode signal and the timing information would allow you to develop algorithms where you're trying to measure the depth of interaction of the photons within the crystal. And all this data can be read out in list mode output. So you're getting the complete rawest form of the data, so you can do whatever data manipulation that you want to do if that was your interest. But if you, like I said, if you really just want a plug and play way of doing it, the software that I mentioned earlier allows you to have a pixel map up on the screen in no time, and it does all the thinking for you, so you can see your data collected in real time and get an image right away. So it's very flexible depending on the user's needs. So let me talk about one of the very nice features of using CZT as a radiation detection source. I said, the range of energies that can be made available to you goes from 30 keV all the way up to 3 MeV. But the question that you might ask yourself is, well, but if I have to detect sources that are over a wide range of energies, do I need to recalibrate the device depending on which range I'm operating in? And the answer is no. You can see here we have an energy calibration curve, and the curve really is just a straight line. So we've gone all the way from americium 241 at 60 keV, all the way up to cesium 137 at 662 keV, and all these sources in between lie on a straight line. And this is very nice if you say you wanted to do theranostics, for example, with multiple tracers, you never have to worry about recalibrating your device depending on which energy range your isotope is in. You know that once it's set and done. Okay, so now that I've told you about the device itself, let me spend some time talking about some of the applications that we've deployed the Dmatrix unit into, and I'll focus on 4 specifically. It's by no means restricted to these 4. First, I'd like to mention the single photon emission CT imaging area, so SPECT cameras, and then we'll talk a little bit about small field of view gamma cameras, and then molecular breast imaging, and then a very novel new application that we're developing here at Chromec in collaboration with our university partners, which we call quantum entanglement tomography. So we'll start off with SPECT. So CZT has a very good advantage in SPECT imaging over your conventional scintillator-based cameras. Remember that scintillator-based cameras are coupled to large PMTs. They're typically made of sodium iodide, which are hygroscopic, so they need encapsulation. And what this ends up doing is you get dead areas in the spaces where the PMTs don't overlap with each other, and you may get truncation of your field of view around the edges because of your encapsulation, and just from the very fact that you just don't have PMTs at the edges beyond your edge to give you more light sharing and allow you to do positioning around the edges. And sodium iodide inherently has worse energy resolution than CZT. The CZT is pixelated and it's direct convergence, so there's no dead space, so it has superior intrinsic spatial resolution and better detector sensitivity and excellent energy resolution. This is what the Chromec gamma camera looks like. We developed this gamma camera many years ago. It is as you can tell, essentially a 12 by 9 array of Dmatrix units. The field of view is fairly consistent with typical whole body SPECT camera, so it's about 40 centimeters by 53 centimeters, and the number of pixels on the surface of the camera is 264 by 198 at a 2mm pitch. Now, I said CZT has excellent energy resolution. Here you can actually see it in action. So we've got the energy resolution for technetium-99 at 140 keV, and it's 3%, and cobalt-57, which is 122 keV, about the same. And what this really allows you to do, like I said, is when you have images where you've got multiple tracers where the energies are fairly close to each other, so you see cobalt and technetium only about 18 keV apart from each other. So in this image, we've got a cobalt source, a technetium-99 phantom, and a americium-241. And when we put an energy window around the Tech-99 phantom, you get absolutely no contamination from the cobalt-57. So you can really separate them out really, really well. So like I said, this has important clinical applications, and theranostics is definitely one that is very up and coming in the field of cardiac imaging, and then also in the lung VQ imaging. This is very pertinent in today's healthcare environment because pulmonary embolism risk is fairly high with COVID-19 patients. So lung VQ imaging is certainly an important modality. And we've done some whole body imaging studies on the Chromex CZT gamma camera and comparing it to a conventional system. So here a patient is imaged on the conventional system on the left first, and then imaged on the Chromex CZT camera, and the protocol is set up essentially so that the total number of counts in each image is the same. And you can see that the Chromic image certainly looks like the background noise characteristics are a lot better. The image is sharper. I think I can, not being a radiologist myself, I can look at this image and say I prefer the Chromic CZT image. And I think most people would agree with me on that. So let's talk about small field of view cameras. Since the Dmatrix, the footprint is only 4 centimeters on a side, when you tile these up, it allows you to tile them in a way that would work for a compact form factor, or even in a larger form factor where you want a curved geometry where it wraps around a patient. This is an approach that has been used by people for cardiac imaging to try to get closer to the chest wall. So different applications where a small field of view is useful would be guided surgery, where you have a handheld camera, small animal imaging certainly, and then organ-specific imaging. And like I said, that could be cardiac or breast imaging, thyroid imaging, and even prostate imaging, and any other small body part that's hard to reach, really. So the next two projects that I'll tell you about are both funded projects in the UK that we're working on with our university and OEM partners. The first one has to do with molecular breast imaging. So most of you probably know that mammography is the typical way of screening breast cancer in most countries around the world. But mammography is notorious for having low sensitivity and specificity, especially when it comes to women who have dense breast tissue. You can see this image on the left here shows a breast that was imaged with mammography, and then the same breast that was imaged using molecular breast imaging. And the mammogram image on the left really just looks like a sky on a cloudy day. I mean, you couldn't tell tissue from tissue. It just all has this hazy features to it, and you wouldn't know that there was something suspicious. But when you look at the MBI image, the tumor immediately stands out. So this is, since MBI is a form of functional imaging, there's no dependence on the breast density. So you don't have to worry about variations in women's dense breast tissue. So in the MBI image, you have a dedicated small field of view camera with digital CZT detectors and specialized collimators. And we think that this would be an excellent secondary screening modality for women with suspected breast cancer. So the Chromic low-dose MBI project is partnering with the NHS Foundation Trust, in particular the Newcastle on Tyne hospitals. And the project goal is to come up with an innovative new camera design that increases lesion detection efficiency by at least a factor of 4. And what we hope this will do is significantly reduce the radiation dose penalty on the patient down to as close to the mammogram level as we can get, and really try to shorten the imaging time as well. And the current progress that we have made on this is we've developed a very comprehensive simulation model, and we're using the simulation model to verify our new detector design ideas and successfully testing them within the simulation. And soon next year in 2021, the first prototype will start to be manufactured here in the US facility. So lastly, I want to talk about quantum entanglement tomography. The name might give you a hint that this has to do with positron emission tomography. For those of you who don't know the basic principle of PET reconstruction, I'll explain it here a little bit. You essentially have your patient who is injected with what is essentially radioactive glucose. Cancerous tumors have a very high uptake of glucose, so this injected activity binds to the tumor site where it undergoes positron decay. So this green circle here in the image is my site of the positron electron annihilation event from the positron decay. And when this happens, you get 2 gamma photons that are ejected back to back, so 180 degrees apart from each other. And they go flying out from the patient, and they are intercepted by the ring of detectors in the PET scanner. And if they're intercepted within a certain coincidence detection timing window, it's recorded as a true coincidence event. But other than the true events, you can imagine that these gammas, as they're flying out of the patient body, are scattered on their way. So this gamma, for instance, instead of hitting this crystal, might scatter and hit somebody on the edges. So now when you repeat this process over and over again, you draw these lines of response for multiple annihilation events. Your point of intersection, which is supposed to be the location of your tumor, now may be becoming larger and larger in its position uncertainty because of all these scattered events that you've used to draw your lines of response. And then there are also just completely random coincidences, 2 gammas that did not come from the same annihilation event, but were just caught within the coincidence timing window and recorded as a coincidence event. So a large part of PET reconstruction, what PET reconstruction struggles with, is how do you correct for scatter? How do you reject random coincidences? And typically this is just done using the energy resolution of your crystals, but there is a new novel way that our university partners are looking at doing this kind of correction, and that is to use the quantum information that is inherently encoded within these gamma photons. And what we find is that the true pairs of photons are in a state of quantum entangled linear polarization. And any pairs of photons that scatter lose this entanglement. So if you can determine which pairs are entangled, then we can keep those in our image reconstruction. We can cut background noise and improve the imaging and perhaps even reduce the dose. And how do we make this possible is with the ability to measure the 3D position of interaction within the CZT. So really having that ability to do timing measurements and having a cathode readout that gives you this 3D position information, not just X, Y, but also Z, enables us to now calculate the angles between the incident photon and the scattered photon, and then gives us the information that allows us to choose the truly entangled pairs that you want to use in your image reconstruction. So this can also give you the ability to recover some of the scattered events that you might have typically just rejected within the detector. So what we expect this will enable us to do is improve the sensitivity of the PET scanner a little bit. So you either maintain your image quality with a lower dose, or you can shorten your scan times. So this is a very interesting, very new novel concept that we're developing with the University of York. So as you can see, lots of possibilities with the Dmatrix unit. So I'll kind of end it there and take your questions. And while you're typing out your questions furiously, I'll put up a little information slide about Chromec, some contact information. And please remember to sign up for our future webinars. The next one is on our grid guided radiation detection backpack. So thank you everyone very much for your time and attention. Let's see, the Q&A. So see some of the questions coming through. Scaling from the Dmatrix demonstrator unit to a gamma camera, how do you do that? Yeah, that's a very good question. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Of course, the demonstrator unit is just for viewing the images from one Dmatrix unit. The unit itself can actually power 4 Dmatrices. So you can buy 1, or you can buy 2, 3, or 4, and use all 4 at the same time using just one demonstrator housing box. Any field of view that is larger than that, so if you remember the image that I showed of our the SPECT camera, the stack up looks slightly different because what we've done is essentially created a different backplane that distributes the high voltage to all the modules, and it reduces some of the number of FPGAs that are in the system to reduce the heat burden, so that we don't have to do any kind of water cooling or anything like that. We can just do air cooling. Another question, what is the power usage of the ASIC in the Dmatrix? The minimum and maximum power usage that we've measured is about 311 milliwatts to about 354 milliwatts. So just take the average to be about 330 milliwatts. What does the readout software, plug and play readout software, enable you to do? Yes, the LISA software, as we call it, it will allow you to do all the configurations. So the Dmatrix, all the readout configurations, and also the any of the ASIC settings. So any parameters that you need to set, that they can be done through, it's a GUI interface, so you can do it through the software. So you can even, when you want to do the readout, you can mask noisy pixels. There's an internal test pulsar, you can turn that on to make IV curves, and then of course it'll display the pixel map, like I said, for viewing the data collection in real time. So it allows you to do all the things that you want to do. There's also a development API that you can download from our website directly. You don't have to purchase the Dmatrix unit to see what the development API looks like. So if you go to our software page, you can download it and see just exactly what kind of settings it allows you to play around with, to give you an idea of what the capabilities of the ASIC are. What 3D resolution you can achieve, I think is what's being asked. The Dmatrix has 3D capabilities. Yes, it does. I don't have a precise answer for the resolution on this number, but depending on how thick the crystal is and what energy mode you're operating in, you can, I think people have tried to do 2-layer DOI, 3-layer DOI. I think that's, I don't know what the exact number on the resolution would be, but I know that you can certainly split a crystal into different layers depending on how thick it is. What is the energy resolution at cesium-137? I believe it's less than 1%, or about approximately 1%. It's early in the morning for me, so I might be speaking out of turn, but at the higher energies, it's certainly very, very low. So on the order of 1% is probably correct. Are your SPECT PET systems commercially available? We don't have a PET system. We just make the SPECT cameras, and we are not an OEM manufacturer of SPECT cameras. We are a component manufacturer, so our SPECT cameras would be bought by, name an OEM, and what it would enable you to do is, if you had a conventional SPECT whole body camera head with sodium iodide, you would essentially be able to, sort of drop and replace it with a CZT camera if that's what they wanted to do, and repackage it as a CZT based system. So that's why maintaining the footprint to be approximately similar to OEM SPECT cameras is how we go about doing it. Let's see more. Can we compare the image of a PET scan with that of a Dmatrix? I think short answer is no. A PET scan is an entire ring of detectors, and the Dmatrix is just one poor little unit. So maybe I think what you're trying to ask is, what if I made a PET scanner out of many, many Dmatrices? And I'd certainly have to use very thick CZT crystals to do that. So no one's ever done that before. I can't imagine. It's not impossible, but the answer is we don't know. We haven't compared the image quality of a PET scan to that of a Dmatrix, but the detection efficiency of CZT is certainly very comparable to sodium iodide. However, of course, it's slow. PET scanners these days often use time of flight in their image reconstruction, which you couldn't quite be able to do with CZT. So I'm not quite sure how the image quality would work out, because you would certainly have good detection efficiency, maybe not quite as good as LYSO, but then you're also missing out on the time of flight information. So it would be a challenge. So it looks like I'm at the half an hour mark. So I think I'm going to end here in the interest of time, and some of the questions, other questions that have come through, we'll certainly receive them and try to answer them and get back to you in person at a later time. So thank you everybody for coming. This was really fun doing this webinar, and we hope to see you next time.